Obviously, you can see from the nature of this work, just from my interest in these different works, that's a lovely song, that I'm really interested in people's responses to the work, and for me that's 75% of the actual work itself, so it's really important to kind of encourage, incite people to ask questions when they look at work.
When they go home, I'll have a look at the bottles on the table.
Yeah.
You always think, oh, I can use that for something else.
I'm glad to know that. It's hard for us to walk into a supermarket without looking at it like this. You know, we would, oh, that's where that one came from, and oh, I never knew what this one was. You know, so it affects me. It affects us both the same way, I think.
I'm really struck by the way we were bombarded with colour, you know, in today's world. All these things are just rubbish, it's just the bottle tops that we throw away. There's every colour in the rainbow, a very intense colour. And centuries ago, people wouldn't have been exposed to that colour all the time, they just take it for granted. And you've heard to say, would the sound's the same? We're bombarded by sound in a way that people in the past wouldn't have been. We're just taking it for granted, we just think it's rubbish.
You know, we only got colour and sound in churches.
Well, this, speaking of churches, this here really does light up with the light. I mean, if you see this rainbow piece at the front of the window, it very much looks like stained glass, and it had that effect. And that's the only time you really saw that was, stained glass. And this is really expensive luxury. This is definitely not expensive or luxury item. It's something far from it.
What struck me about this piece when I saw it just through images on the internet was actually the way it was crawling up the walls and the way it was just kind of, I call this work site specific in that, I think this work was created over in the States.
Yeah, that's right.
And, but it's entered into the space and it's animated it, they've installed it so that, it forms the space as much as the space informs it.
It is a very flexible piece, and it has to change every time you bring it into a new space, just to address the architecture and the flow of traffic, really.
So, you see, the art's really interactive here.
A bit taxi.
I mean, one aspect is, in my work personally, I work a lot with recycling materials, and obviously when I saw this piece, apart from the colour, there's a lot of, it kind of makes me think about how we discard things so readily today.
Yeah, and that was a big part of it for us, is the plastics used on the tops themselves are not recyclable in the U.S., and I don't know about here, but the bottles we recycle, and it's not a problem. It gets reused and back into our system, where these, for some reason, because of the way they dye it or the chemical in it, is non-recyclable, so it always ends up in the landfill, or in nature, or we're out hiking, or on the beach when you're, walking. You're going to find these evidence of man, sort of, and really, it's this whole language of advertising, the color you were mentioning. Everything about it is like the advertising companies want you to think of health and vitality and strength.
I mean, one thing that interests me about this thing we call art is just really the people behind the work as well. And for example, there's 8 different artists in this space, but I don't think you can necessarily tell. You wouldn't be able to really pinpoint which piece belongs to which artist.
I made this little part right there.
There are sections where you definitely know, of course, yeah. You're like, oh yeah.
So if you two have been arguing in the day,
Oh,
so
show.
like lots
Yeah.
of black in one section.
Yeah, it definitely shows. It's very strange because, like you said, we're doing another one. We were commissioned by the state to produce one for this area of student housing, and we started out just in this massive circle, stress kept on building and building, and it was like, this is wrong, it's not right, it's never gonna work. And then finally, Laura was like, I'm cutting it up, that's it. Just takes a knife to it and starts cutting up sections, and then it was like, oh, so much better, right? Wow. You know, what a relief, you know, we can go back to work.
If you had yourself a little speed as well,
Welcome to this part of paradise. So this is traditionally a design architecture space, and a lot of people often wonder in here, and they come to find the books and they've got no idea that there's a space behind there, which is an exhibition space. And you know, what I really noticed about this space was it's a very polished commercial space, and I was quite interested in that because my work's a lot about, you know, the environment, how you relate to your surroundings, and also I often use a lot of recycled materials in my work. So I was interested in the playoff really between I guess the tacticity and the detail in my work and the sheen of the gallery space. And also, when you go through there, you'll notice the difference in the warmth, the atmosphere, for example, compared to the other venue, which is mainly kind of the organisation who takes over spaces like that. It's called the Art Organisation, and they're interested in derelict, disused spaces. So basically, this project has been a year in fruition. I got funding from the Capital of Culture, as I mentioned, and it was important for me to just create really whatever organically came out of me after 6 months of research. Research meaning that I spoke to people from all across Liverpool, and you'll find these people and their voices throughout the exhibition, and they're a really important part of the show because for me they represent to some extent Liverpool and the different boroughs without trying to generalise, but hopefully I spent time with each person and it was quite a random encounter. Some people I met in the supermarket, some people I researched and, you know, actually went to visit. I spent a couple of days in a cab following a guy all around the city centre and the crazy people that he had in his fairs really. Some of them will start singing to you afterwards, Beatles songs. Other people, for example, the Wenton family, Afro-Caribbean in background, they invited me to their house. I spent an afternoon in their home, and it was quite an interesting conversation which unravelled between mother and daughter. And you know, when I was speaking to people, I was really trying to understand, as I was saying to you earlier, how people try and lead their lives today. But when I touched upon the subject, often people would start talking about, you know, what they did every day or the problems they encountered in their daily lives. So, I mean, the Wenton family, the mother and daughter, the daughter was really quite, she was a bit prickly about my presence with a video camera, and she wondered why I was there. You know, she's 22, single mother, and she'd had a lot of racist issues throughout her life, and her mother the same. And the two were kind of thrashing it out almost on the sofa in front of me, and it was quite, you know, I was hiding behind the camera, but also it was, you know, really fascinating just to hear, as though I wasn't there, this conversation. You know, they were having quite a heated debate. You know, the mother, for example, used to work in the job centre, and a lot of people that came with, you know, obviously they were Afro-Caribbean in ethnicity, but they would tick whites down in the hope to get a job. And she was talking about, you know, the Toxteth riots, just about her experience of Liverpool really, and where she is now. And this is reflected throughout the different voices.